Hello all, welcome back to Learning Partner. If you are new, please do subscribe. This is another channel where you can directly connect with me. We have around 1000 plus members already who are working. We take live coding sessions and everything. To just get notified about those sessions, please do join this group. So in last episode, we have completed template form. How do we create the template form by using ng model? How do we do the validation? Again, like API integration, I have not done. So just I'm explaining what is template form and what is reactive form. Again, once we start the API integration, these things are again going to repeat, but just want to keep some dedicated episode for particular form. Now, so as we discussed, like in Angular, we have two types of form, template and the reactive. So template is completed. Now we have to see the reactive form. These are the things which we are going to discuss. How to create reactive form, how to do the validation in reactive form, what is form control, how to disable particular form control also, either in .ts or in the either from .ts or from the HTML also. Fine. So let's start. What I have done is like I have created component. So here you can see form folder is there. Inside that template form was there. Now I have created reactive form. After you create the component, next thing I have created the route, and in your app component, I have added the link also. So let's see now. Again, in just to get the reactive form, we are going to use the bootstrap form. So you just have to go to bootstrap site. You just have to search forms so that a default form we can make use. You just have to go to validation, and here you can see the form. So let's copy the HTML code. Let's paste it over here. So we will be able to see the form. Yeah, so that add character is there. So let me just remove that add character with, what is that? Instead of app character, if we need the add symbol, we need to use this. Let's copy paste. Fine. So we are able to see the form. Let's add container div so that our form will be coming in the center. Let's move this inside our container. Fine. So we have our form. Now, how do we create the reactive form? So first, when we talk about template, in template, we have very less code in the .ts, but in case of reactive, we have more code in the .ts. So let's open side by side. So in reactive form, first we have to create the object in the .ts, just like how we created the object in the template form, but here we have to create the form. So if you have to use ng model, we import forms module. But if we have to use reactive form, we have to import reactive form module. This one. First step, you need to import reactive form module. Now in your component, you will be creating a form. So let's say user form colon form group, like this you need to create, is equal to new form group, round bracket, curly bracket. So this is our default form. This is how we create the reactive form. The data type will be form group. Fine. Now we have created instance of our form group. Now inside this form group, we have to create the control, just like in the what do we say, Hmm. template form. We were creating object. Inside that object, we were creating fields. Just like that, over here, we have to create the form. And inside this form, now we have to create the field, like whatever the controls we have. We don't say it as a field, we have to say it as a control. So let's say, what do we have? First name. So let's say first name colon. Now new form control we have to create. Sorry, new should be in small. New form control, round bracket, and inside round bracket you can initialize the default value. So I will go with empty because it's a string value. Then we have last name. So last name, again new form control, round bracket, double quotes. Then we have username. So username, new form control, round bracket, empty. Then we have city state. So city, new form control, round bracket, double quote, empty, whatever the default value you need to give. State, new form control, round bracket, double quote, empty. Let's say I need to provide some while initialization form, I need to provide some default value. So from template, let's use that state drop down. This was a drop down we had. So let's say in my state drop down, I have these are the states I have. So once the form load, I need Goa as my defaulted state. So this we can provide it over here, default initialization value. Then we have zip code, control, and then we have, what is the last one? Is agree terms, is agree, new form control. So this is going to be Boolean value. So I can initialize with false. So here you can see we have created our reactive form. This is how your reactive form should look like. This is again very basic. Again, we are going to modify this. So this is how your basic reactive form will look like. Now we have created our form. Now this form, user form, whatever our form name, this we need to bind to our form tag over here in square bracket form group. You need to bind your reactive form like this. This is the first thing. First, you will create the form in .ts. Whatever the controls you want to create, that you will create. And control name will be like whatever the API object is there, na, same like that you will create. Like in the template form, we were creating object with certain properties. Whatever the field name what we use, that field name is nothing but your control name. Fine. Then next step, you need to bind your form to your HTML. Now, after that, on all the input element, wherever you have the input element, you will be using form control name like this equal to this. Now here you need to provide your control name, only control name. It's not like user form dot f name, directly control name, because we have already specified our like what is the form. So first name, if we provide form control name as first name, so it will try to find f name is there in user form or not, like this. Fine. Let me just copy paste now. Let me just copy paste, then I will change the control names. Drop down, zip code, and the checkbox. Fine. Let's bind it. Is agree. Then we have zip over here. Then this is for state. Then we have city. Then we have username. Where it is? Yeah, over here. Then we have last name. So let's copy last name. Fine. So once you create the form, next thing on the form tag, you need to bind it, either form tag or a div, any parent element. Fine. On your whole form should be inside this form tag only. Right. Then we have binded on all the input element. We are using a form controller name. This is like how we use ng model. Just like that, we have to use form controller name over here. Fine. Then we have a submit button, right? So in reactive form, either you can use submit, and if you are using type submit on the form tag, you can use ng submit function like this. Let's say on user save. Let's create this function. Now here I will be creating a local variable. Let's say form value. Now we have created our form. This form we have binded over here, but we need to make API call on click of save. So how do you get the object? So this dot user form dot value. So you will get a complete object. Let me just add a debugger and then we will check. So I was telling you like this is one way. If your button type is submit, if your button type is submit, on the form tag, you can use ng submit function, or you can have a normal click function also. Same thing, same function, you can call it over here also. One and the same thing. But in reactive, we normally go with this above approach, right? It's not mandatory, but we can go with that approach. And again, same function, you will call it over here like this. Fine. So again, it's no, we don't want to repeat. So we can go with the form submit. Fine. Let's test it now. Again, in in reactive form, sorry, in template form, we had to bind that name attribute if you are using ng model inside a form tag. But here we don't have that mandatory. Fine. Let's try now. Let's open the inspect. Let's provide some value. Chetan Sogi, Chetan at the rate gmail.com. City, let's say Pune. You can see by default Goa is there already selected, because while initializing form, we have provided Goa as my default value. Fine. True. On click of submit, you can see we got the value, we got our event click. So here in the form value, you can see we got the object. Now this object, we will send it to the API. Got it? So, And see over here, how do we get the reactive form? If you hover on that, what are the controls you created? All that you can see. Let's check fname. Inside that fname, in the value, you will get the value. Is it valid or not? All properties you will get it, right? So this is how your form control will look like. Clear? Now, so this is default. Like how do we create reactive form and how do we bind it to the form also in template? Now we will move ahead for the validation. So in template form, we added the validation rule in the HTML, but in reactive form, we have to add the validation while creating the form. So over here, comma, then you can see it is like value after that validation options. So here we have to pass it as an array because validations can be multiple, required, min length, max length, pattern, like that. So here validators dot required. Fine. So this is how you add the validation rules. Let's say first name is required. On last name, we will say validators dot required and validators dot min length also. Let's say min length is 5 characters. This is how you add the validation rule on all the control elements. Fine. Now we have added the rules, like what validation rules we have to add it for on each control. Now we need to show the validations also. So over here, let's add text danger class. Now, if you remember, like in the template form, we have added validation by creating hash property. But here we can get the form validation like user form. So let's create over here span. I will create, and here I will write this is required. Fine. Now this span should be visible if I have the validation. So I will use @ block because this is new thing what we should use. Now, what will be the condition? Form dot controls square bracket single quote. What is the control name? Fname dot errors. What will be the errors? Question mark again, question mark. We need to add square bracket required. What it is saying? Dot is missing. Yeah. So you can see this is same thing what we got it from the template. Just in the template form here we used to provide the hash property value, but here we have to check the form control and specific control name. And this pan will go inside my if condition. Let's test it if validations are getting triggered. So by default it is visible. If I provide any value, see validation is going away. Again, if you remember in the template form, we have added the touch property. Just like that, here also we can add the touch property. Again, this and dot touch property. Let's check. So by default, validation is not there. But once user touch and didn't provide the value, you can see validation got triggered. Fine. Once I provide the value, validation is going away. Same it is behaving. Fine. Let's check over here. In last name, we had two validation. So let's add two span. This is required. This is first one, and second validation is for min length. Min length 5. Let's copy paste. And here we will provide the message minimum 5 characters needed. Fine. Again, @ if. So now user form dot controls square bracket single quote. Our control name is last name dot errors question marks dot square bracket. First is for required. Like this. Something we are missing. Question mark. What are we missing? Okay. Inside this we didn't write it. Wait. Round bracket is missing over here. Yeah. Now this span will go inside this, the required one. Now just like this, I will copy paste. One more if condition instead of required. Now it will be min length. And again that touch check also we need. So let's copy. Now instead of adding it two times, what we can do above this div also we can have one more if statement. If the control is touch, then only we will show the validation. So Instead of adding the value touch property twice, with this whole div, we will move it over here. Fine. And this minimum, we will move it over here, minimum 5 characters needed. Let's save and check if validation is getting triggered for last name also. So by default, we don't have the validation. If I touch and move away, this is required is coming. Fine. If I provide 2, 3 value, wait, why it is not available? Sorry, spelling mistake is there. GTH. Let's try again. Fine. This is required is coming. Once I start providing, we got the second validation message like minimum 5 characters needed. Once I provide the 5 character, that validation message also goes away. Got it? So this is how you add the validation. Same like you can provide the pattern also. In reactive form, for let's say username is having email address. So validators dot email is there. By default validation is, so you don't have to provide the pattern, but you can provide the pattern also, validators dot pattern. And you can provide whatever the pattern. You just have to Google the pattern, email pattern, Aadhaar card pattern, PAN card pattern, whatever the pattern you need to use, right? That you can provide it over here. And while showing the validation for email, you will provide email over here. And for pattern, you will provide pattern over here. This is how you do the validation. Fine. Let's say while initializing the validation is done, now I will explain like form control. I have already explained how to disable the form control. So we said state by default, we have provided the Goa value, but I don't want user to select this. So what I can do, let's create the constructor. And in constructor, what I need to do, once my form is properly initialized, I need to disable this particular form. So what I can do, this dot user form dot controls square bracket single quote. Our control name is, let's say, state, and I need to disable it. So dot disable. Let's try this. Let's check if we are able to see our specific state control has been disabled. So we have got disabled and enable function also over here like this. Let's say, let's add a set timeout, and in set timeout after 5 seconds again we will enable it. 5 seconds. And again, by default, we are disabling it. After 5 seconds, we will again enable it. I just want to show you that we can enable this also. See, we have it disabled. After 5 seconds, it should enable. See, it got enabled. Got it? So this is how you disable and enable the form. You can check the whole form validity also. So that will be like const is valid this dot user form dot valid. So this is how you can check if form is valid or not. This check you will be adding on the save function. Fine. Again, you can disable the, what do we say? Submit button also. So that you can do by using the form value, just like we have done in the React template form. Disabled flag you can use, and this dot form dot invalid. Let's save and check. See, by default, it is disabled. Once I provide proper value, what else validation we have added? Okay, here we added the validation now. So let's remove it. Let's try it one more time. So by default, it is disabled. Once I provide the validation, why it is still disabled? Invalid or valid properties there. Let's check with valid, or let's print this value also. We will get to know what we get it over here. Let's try one more time. So by default, you can see it is false. Once I provide, it is false only. Why? Is it a valid or invalid? Let's try invalid. So by default, it is true. We added validation on only two parts, right? For first name and this. It is saying true only. And instead of this, let's try this over here. It's something new in 19 or what? Let's try. So if I click on submit, so here we got it false. So form valid is false. Fine. Let's try to provide the value. On click of submit, still we are getting false. Let's check what do we got. So in user form, invalid, true over here. Fine. Let's try vice versa. And if I click on submit, user form, you're getting like how I'm checking. There it is, invalid. Still it is true. And over here, false. Let's provide correct value. On click of submit. Oh, so valid property is working fine, no? Why it is not behaving the same over here? By default, it is false. Why it is not behaving? We got it false now. Okay. And if I remove it, means we have validation false only. Why it is not validating? Error is also null. Something new is there or what? Let me just check. I don't want you to confuse. So sorry, my bad. So in the HTML, we copied the HTML code from Bootstrap. So here we had this required, right? So that's why it was behaving different. So this valid is only working. Let me show you now. Fine. So by default, you can see, okay. So we have to go with not over here. Let's say, so by default, you can see button is disabled. And here also we got it from. So once I provide the proper validation, so you can see button is getting enabled. If I remove it, and if we have the validation, see button is still got disabled. So this is how we do the validation. Fine. User form means your form value dot valid only. Fine. I checked it over angular.dev also. So here we got something status also, which is something new. Fine. So this is very basic thing about reactive form. Again, so many things are there. Like just like we created reactive form using form group, just like that we can create our form using form builder also. That I will explain while we start the API integration, so that I can cover everything. Again, we can create dynamic controls also. That also I will be explaining in the further episode. Once we are done with the basic topic, again, like I will be starting with the advanced also. So there I will be covering that. Fine. So that's it with this current video. If you are new, please do like and subscribe, and please do join my WhatsApp link. Thank you.